There is this sinking sensation that makes your skin crawl and your heart race, even when you can't explain why. Well, I'm Maya, and just one night experience changed everything I thought I knew about my marriage. What started as a simple suspicion led me down a rabbit hole of lies, secrets, and a discovery that nearly stopped my heart. And before this story is over, you'll understand why sometimes. The truth is far more complicated than you ever imagined. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it all began. Before we begin, if you enjoy stories about justice, family betrayal, revenge, and people getting exactly what they deserve, hit that subscribe button. Tell us in the comment section where you are watching from. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this ends. It was a Tuesday evening, and I was sitting in my home office, surrounded by marketing reports and the blue glow of my computer screen. I glanced at the clock on the wall, 9:47 p.m. The house was too quiet, too empty. My husband David had texted me 3 hours earlier. "Working late again, babe, don't wait up." I stared at that message for what felt like the 100th time. Working late. Again. That made 5 times in the past 2 weeks. 5 times he'd come home after midnight, smelling like stress and exhaustion, barely able to keep his eyes open long enough to kiss me goodnight. Now, I know what you're thinking. Maya, that's what happens when you're married to a financial analyst during tax season, right? And you'd be right. That's exactly what I kept telling myself. But here's the thing about intuition. It doesn't care about logic. It doesn't care about reasonable explanations. Something felt off. I tried to focus on my work, but my mind kept wandering. David and I had been married for 6 years. 6 years of building a life together, of knowing each other's routines and habits. And lately I'd felt like I was living with a stranger. Was it my fault? Maybe. I'd been buried in work, landing new clients, pulling long hours myself. We'd been ships passing in the night for months. But this felt different. This felt like more than just two busy people struggling to connect. Before I knew what I was doing, I was grabbing my keys and my purse. "I'll just bring him coffee," I said out loud to the empty house, as if saying it would make it true. "He's probably exhausted. It'll be a nice surprise." But my hands were shaking as I started the car. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't about coffee. This was about that gnawing feeling in my stomach that had been growing for weeks. This was about needing to know that I was wrong, that I was just being paranoid, that my marriage was fine. The drive downtown took 25 minutes. 25 minutes of my mind racing through every interaction we'd had in the past month. The new cologne he'd started wearing, the way he'd angled his phone away from me when texts came in, that business trip to Chicago that he'd seemed almost eager to take. "Stop it, Maya. You're being ridiculous." But I kept driving. David's office building rose up against the night sky like a giant glass monument, all sharp angles and reflected streetlights. I pulled into the parking garage across the street, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. From where I sat, I had a perfect view of the 12th floor. David's firm took up the entire level. I'd been there dozens of times for company parties and the occasional lunch visit, and it was completely dark. Not just dim, dark. Every light was off. I scanned the other floors, counting them to make sure I had the right one. The 9th floor had lights on in several offices. The 15th floor was lit up like someone was working late. But the 12th floor? Nothing but darkness. My mouth went dry. Maybe they were in a conference room on the other side of the building. Maybe there was a reasonable explanation. Maybe I was about to make a complete fool of myself. With trembling fingers, I pulled out my phone and called him. It rang once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. Then, "Hey babe," his voice sounded breathless, slightly strained. "Hi honey," I said, trying to keep my voice light and casual, even though my throat felt like it was closing. "How's work going?" "Busy," he said quickly. Too quickly. "Really can't talk right now, we're absolutely slammed." And that's when I heard it. In the background, behind David's voice, I heard a low, feminine moan, soft but unmistakable. And then music, something jazzy and intimate, the kind of music you'd hear in a hotel bar or... My blood turned to ice. "Gotta go," David said abruptly, and the line went dead. I sat there in my car, staring at my phone, feeling like the entire world had just shifted sideways. That wasn't office noise. That wasn't the sound of people working late. That was something else entirely. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. I felt like I couldn't breathe, like someone had wrapped a band around my chest and was pulling it tighter and tighter. And then I remembered. The GPS app. We'd installed a family tracking app on our phones 2 years ago, one of those safety things for couples. Just in case something happens, David had said, so we always know the other is safe. I'd never once checked it, never had a reason to. I trusted him, trusted. Past tense. I opened the app with shaking fingers, waiting for it to load. And when it did, when that little blue dot appeared on the screen representing David's phone, my entire world stopped. He wasn't at his office. He wasn't anywhere near his office. The blue dot pulsed steadily on a location 15 minutes away. I zoomed in, my vision starting to blur with tears I hadn't realized were forming. The Sterling Hotel. A luxury boutique hotel downtown. The kind of place with expensive sheets and champagne room service and absolute discretion. Room 807. I don't remember putting my car in drive. I don't remember pulling out of the parking garage or navigating through the downtown streets. It was like I was watching myself from outside my body, like this was happening to someone else. But it wasn't someone else. It was me. And my husband was at a hotel, lying about working late, with someone who was definitely not a coworker. The Sterling Hotel appeared before me like something out of a nightmare. All Art Deco elegance and soft lighting and valet parking. And there, in the parking lot near the entrance, was David's silver Audi. His car, his actual car, sitting there like proof of every terrible thing I was thinking. I pulled into a parking space and just sat there, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. What was I going to do? Burst into the hotel? Demand a key to room 807? Confront him? Confront them? And what would I find if I did? My phone buzzed in my lap. A text from my best friend Jen. Movie night this weekend? Normal life. Regular life. The life where my husband worked late at the office and came home to me and everything was fine. Except nothing was fine. Nothing would ever be fine again. I looked up at the hotel entrance, then down at my phone showing that blue dot pulsing in room 807, then at David's car sitting there like evidence at a crime scene. And I made a decision. I was going in. The Sterling Hotel lobby was exactly what you'd expect from a place that charges $400 a night. All Art Deco elegance, gold fixtures, geometric patterns on the walls, lighting so carefully designed it made everything look like a movie set. My heels clicked sharply against the marble floor as I walked in, each step echoing in the quiet space. Then the sound disappeared completely as I stepped onto the thick carpet, like the hotel itself was trying to muffle secrets. I caught my reflection in one of the massive gold-framed mirrors lining the lobby. I barely recognized myself. My face was pale, my eyes too wide, my expression somewhere between determined and unhinged. I looked like a woman on the edge of discovering something that would change everything. Because I was. The clerk at the front desk was helping another guest, an older couple asking about breakfast times. I was grateful for the distraction. I moved quickly toward the elevators, my heart hammering so hard I thought everyone in the lobby must be able to hear it. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and I stepped inside. I pressed the button for the 8th floor, and the doors slid shut, sealing me in with my racing thoughts and the soft jazz playing through hidden speakers. That elevator ride felt like it lasted forever. My mind wouldn't stop spinning. I kept thinking about our relationship, scanning through memories like I was looking for clues I'd missed. Were there signs? Had I been blind? Our anniversary last month, David had seemed distracted, distant. I'd chalked it up to work stress. And that new cologne he'd started wearing, the expensive one that smelled like cedar and something spicy? Just wanted to try something new, he'd said. Then there was the gym membership. David, who'd never worked out a day in his life, suddenly joining a gym and going 3 times a week? I'd been happy about it, thought he was finally taking care of himself. God, I'd been so stupid. Or had I? Maybe I'd just been too busy with my own work, too caught up in landing new clients and building my career. Maybe I'd stopped paying attention to my own husband. The elevator chimed. 8th floor. The doors opened, and I stepped out into a long hallway with plush carpeting in deep burgundy and walls painted in warm cream tones. Soft lighting from Art Deco sconces created pools of shadow and light. Room 807 was at the very end of the corridor. Each step toward that room felt surreal, like I was walking through water or a dream. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, in my fingertips, behind my eyes. As I got closer, I could hear sounds coming from inside the room. Voices, muffled, but definitely voices. And music, that same jazz I'd heard in the background during our phone call. I reached the door and just stood there. My hand was raised to knock, but I couldn't move. What was I doing? What was I about to walk into? Did I really want to know? 1,000 scenarios ran through my mind, each one worse than the last. David with another woman. David with someone I knew. David in a situation that would destroy our marriage beyond repair. But I had to know. I couldn't unknow what I already knew. I couldn't untrack his phone or unhear that woman's voice. So I knocked. 3 sharp raps that sounded like gunshots in the quiet hallway. The sounds inside the room stopped immediately. Complete silence. Then I heard shuffling, hurried whispers. The door opened a crack, just a crack, the security chain still attached. And there was David's face, appearing in that narrow opening. He went absolutely white. Like every drop of blood had drained from his face in an instant. "Maya?" His voice cracked. "What? How did you?" "Open the door, David." My voice didn't sound like my own. It was cold, hard, controlled. Even though inside I was screaming, "Please, you don't understand, just let me explain." But I was done with explanations. I was done with lies. I pushed against the door, not hard enough to break the chain, but hard enough to show I meant business. "I know someone's in there," I called through the opening. "I heard her on the phone. I tracked your GPS. I know you're not alone." David's face showed panic, but here's the thing. It wasn't the panic of a man caught cheating. It was something else, something that looked almost like fear. "Maya, please." His hands were shaking as he fumbled with the chain. That's when I noticed his clothes. He wasn't dressed for romance. He was wearing jeans and a button-down shirt, completely normal, nothing special. The door swung open, and I burst in, ready to face the other woman, ready for the confrontation that would end my marriage. And I stopped cold. The hotel room looked nothing like what I'd expected. There was professional lighting equipment set up, a ring light, a camera on a tripod, what looked like a portable green screen folded in the corner. A laptop sat open on the desk, showing some kind of editing software. And on the bed, sitting cross-legged and looking just as startled as I felt, was a woman. But she wasn't in lingerie or a seductive dress. She was wearing workout gear, yoga pants, and a sports top, and she was holding a microphone. A microphone. "Maya," David said, his voice defeated. "This is Sandra. She's my podcast co-host." I stood there, completely disoriented. My brain couldn't process what I was seeing. I'd prepared myself for infidelity, for heartbreak, for the end of my marriage. But this, a podcast, I heard myself say. "You're recording a podcast?" Sandra gave me an awkward wave. Hi, this is not how I imagined meeting David's wife." I looked around the room again, really taking it in this time. The equipment was professional grade. The laptop screen showed audio waveforms and editing timelines. There were notes scattered on the bed, talking points written in David's handwriting. This was real. This was actually a podcast setup. "I don't understand." My voice felt far away. "Why would you hide this? Why lie about working late? Why rent a hotel room to record a podcast?" David opened his mouth to answer, but Sandra cut him off. "Look, I'm just gonna go." She was already gathering her things, shoving the microphone into a bag, avoiding eye contact. "David, I told you this was getting too complicated. I told you weeks ago." "Sandra, wait." David moved toward her. "We need to." But she was already at the door, slipping past me with a muttered, "Sorry," that could have meant anything. And then she was gone, leaving me alone with my husband in a hotel room full of equipment and secrets. The silence after Sandra left was suffocating. I looked at David. Really looked at him. His shoulders were slumped, his face crumpled with shame and something else, guilt. "Start talking," I said quietly. "Now, what is this really about?" David sat down heavily on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. When he looked up at me, there were tears in his eyes. "I didn't want you to know because..." He took a shaky breath. "Because the podcast isn't about finance, Maya. It's not about market trends or investment strategies." He reached for the laptop, turned it toward me. The screen showed a podcast cover, Unfiltered Marriage, Real Talk from the Trenches. My stomach dropped. It's about relationships, David continued, his voice barely above a whisper. It's couples therapy advice. Anonymous couples therapy advice. Sandra's a licensed therapist, and I'm the anonymous husband sharing real stories from a real marriage. He clicked on an episode. I saw the title, When Your Wife Stops Seeing You. My blood ran cold. Maya, David said, and his voice broke. I've been using our marriage problems as content. I've been telling thousands of strangers about our fights, about your work stress, about our intimacy issues. Everything we've been going through, I've been turning it into podcast episodes. I stared at the screen, at the episode titles scrolling down. When Connection Dies. The Slow Fade of Intimacy. Living Like Roommates. Each title was a knife to the chest because I recognized every single one. These were our problems, our private, painful problems. I couldn't even form words. You've been telling strangers about our marriage, about our private life, about everything. David stood up, reaching for me. Please, let me explain everything. There's more. More? I stepped back. What could possibly be more than this? You've been exploiting our marriage for content? You've been lying to me for how long has this been going on? 8 months, he whispered. But Maya, the money. Money? That's when I noticed the laptop screen had switched to some kind of dashboard. Numbers, subscribers, revenue. 47,000 subscribers, monthly revenue $4,000. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. You've been making money off our pain? My voice was rising now, all that cold control shattering. Off my anxiety? Off our problems? Who are you? David's phone buzzed on the nightstand. He glanced at it and his face went even paler, something I didn't think was possible. David? I said. Who is that? He picked up the phone, read the message, and I watched something shift in his expression. Fear. Real, genuine fear. We need to go home, he said urgently. Right now. Maya, there's something else I haven't told you. Something bigger than the podcast. Bigger than betraying my trust. Bigger than turning our marriage into entertainment. He looked at me, and I saw desperation in his eyes. The podcast money. It's not for us. I've been sending it to someone from my past. Maya, I'm being blackmailed. As I stood there, trying to process this betrayal, David dropped another bomb. He was being blackmailed. The money he'd made from exploiting our pain wasn't for us. It was going to someone from his past. I sat down on the hotel bed, pulling David's laptop closer. My hands were still shaking, but I needed to see this for myself. I needed to understand what he'd been doing. Unfiltered Marriage. Real Talk from the Trenches. 47,000 subscribers. 47,000 people listening to our life fall apart. I scrolled through the episode list, and each title felt like a punch to the gut. When Connection Dies. The Slow Fade of Intimacy. Living Like Roommates. When Your Wife Stops Seeing You. That last one, I clicked on it, my heart hammering. The episode description read, This week, we talk about what happens when you feel invisible in your own marriage. When work becomes more important than presence. When you realize you're married to someone who doesn't really see you anymore. I recognized it immediately. This was about the fight we'd had 3 weeks ago, when David asked me to skip a client dinner to stay home with him. And I'd said I couldn't. The hurt in his eyes when I chose work over him. Again, David had been standing by the window, giving me space. Now he moved closer, his voice soft and broken. Maya, I need you to understand something. I started this podcast 8 months ago when our marriage felt like it was dying. I looked up at him, and for the first time that night, I really listened. I felt invisible, he continued, sitting down in the desk chair, keeping distance between us. You were so consumed with work, with landing new clients, building your career, and I was proud of you. I am proud of you. But I stopped existing for you. We'd go days barely speaking more than logistics. When was the last time we had a real conversation, Maya? When was the last time you asked me how I was actually feeling? His words cut deep because they were true. I'd been so focused on my career, on proving myself, that I'd let everything else fade into the background, including my husband. So I started talking to Sandra, David said. She's a therapist who wanted to start a relationship podcast. She needed someone to provide the male perspective, the real lived experience. and I needed someone to hear me. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to scream at him for violating our privacy. But part of me, a part I didn't want to acknowledge, understood. It started as an outlet, he continued, a way to process what we were going through. But then it grew. People connected with the stories. They felt less alone. We started getting sponsors, making real money, and I thought... He laughed bitterly. I thought I could surprise you. When we hit 50,000 subscribers, I was going to tell you everything. I'd saved $4,000 from last month's sponsorships. I was planning to use all of it to renew our vows, to show you that I still believed in us. I closed my eyes, feeling emotions crash over me in waves. Violation. He'd told strangers about my anxiety attacks, about our bedroom problems, about the most intimate struggles of our marriage. Understanding. He'd felt abandoned, unheard, and he'd found a way to cope that made him feel less alone. Anger. He'd crossed a massive line without my consent. Sympathy, because I knew, deep down, that I'd pushed him there. You commodified our pain, I said quietly. You turned our private struggles into content for people to consume. You talked about things that were supposed to be just ours. I changed names, details, David said quickly. No one knows it's us, I made sure of that. But you know, I know, and you still crossed a line, David. These were our problems to solve together, not material for your podcast. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. You're right, I crossed a line. I told myself I was helping people, that I was making something positive out of our pain. But really, I was running from the real problem, that we'd stopped fighting for each other. We decided to go home. We couldn't have this conversation in a hotel room that smelled like secrets and broken trust. The drive was mostly silent. David focused on the road, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. I stared out the window, watching the city lights blur past, trying to figure out how we'd gotten here. To distract myself, I picked up David's phone. He'd handed it to me before we left the hotel, a gesture of good faith, of transparency. Look at whatever you want, he'd said. No more secrets. I opened the podcast app, scrolling through the business dashboard he'd left open. Revenue charts, subscriber growth, engagement metrics. It was impressive, actually. He'd built something real, something successful. And then I saw the transactions tab. Most of the withdrawals made sense. Payments to Sandra, equipment purchases, software subscriptions. But then I saw something that made my blood run cold. A withdrawal from 3 days ago, $15,000. Recipient Marcus Peterson. David. My voice cut through the silence in the car. Who's Marcus Peterson? I watched his knuckles go even whiter on the steering wheel, his jaw clenched. And why, I continued, my voice gaining strength, did you send him $15,000 from the podcast account? The silence stretched so long I thought he wasn't going to answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I was trying to fix it before you found out. Fix what, David? What the hell is going on? He's my college roommate, my former business partner. I felt my stomach drop. The startup that failed, the one you never talk about. David nodded, taking the exit toward our neighborhood. It failed 3 years ago, right before I got the job at the firm. We had investors, Maya, people who lost a lot of money when everything collapsed. We pulled into our driveway, but neither of us moved to get out of the car. There was one investor in particular, David continued. Richard Graves. He was ruthless, connected, and when the startup failed, he threatened legal action. Said he'd make sure Marcus and I never worked in the industry again. But you're working, I said. You have a good job, so what? Because Marcus made it go away. David finally looked at me, and I saw genuine fear in his eyes. There was evidence, Maya. Evidence that Graves himself had committed fraud, using our startup to funnel money for tax evasion. If it came out, everyone would go down. Us, Graves, all the investors. Marcus had access to it all, and he buried it, destroyed records, manipulated files, made it disappear. My mind was racing. That's obstruction of justice. That's criminal. Yes. David's voice cracked. And if it ever comes out, Marcus and I could both be charged as accessories. We helped cover up fraud to save our own skins. We went inside, straight to David's home office. He opened his laptop and showed me everything. Emails from Marcus going back 3 years, payment records, threats thinly veiled as reminders about their arrangement. He's been blackmailing you, I said. scrolling through the emails. For 3 years. $2,000 a month, like clockwork, David confirmed. I told myself it was just until I could figure out a way to fix it. But there was no fixing it. And then when the podcast started making money, Marcus found out somehow. He demanded more. Said if I didn't pay, he'd anonymously tip off the authorities about what we did. I sat back in the desk chair, trying to process everything. My husband wasn't just running a secret podcast, he was caught in a blackmail scheme that could destroy our entire life. The $15,000, David continued, that was Marcus's price for staying quiet for another 6 months. He said it was my insurance policy. But Maya, I know how this ends. He's never going to stop. There will always be another payment, another demand. I'm trapped. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. 3 years, David. 3 years of living with this, and you never said a word. Because I was protecting you. His voice rose, desperate. If this comes out, I don't just lose my job. I could be charged as an accessory to fraud. We could lose everything, the house, our savings, my reputation. I couldn't drag you into it. I thought if I could just manage it, keep it contained. You weren't protecting me, I interrupted, my voice sharp. You were protecting yourself. And in the process, you made me feel crazy. All those late nights, the secretive behavior, the lies, I thought I was losing my mind, David. I thought our marriage was falling apart because of something I did wrong. It was falling apart because of something I did wrong, David said quietly. All of this, the podcast, the secrets, the lies, it's all on me. You were distant because I pushed you away. I was so consumed with managing Marcus, with keeping this secret, that I stopped being present in our marriage, and then I blamed you for not noticing. I sat there in silence, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. My husband had been living a double life, running a secret podcast about our failing marriage while being blackmailed by a former business partner over potential fraud charges. But here's what I realized in that moment. I'd been living a half-life too. I'd been so buried in work, so focused on external success, that I'd stopped seeing the person I loved most. I'd stopped asking questions. I'd stopped being curious about his life, his feelings, his struggles. We'd both been hiding, just in different ways. How much have you paid him? I asked. Total. David pulled up a spreadsheet. $72,000 over 3 years. I felt sick. That's our savings. The money we were supposed to use for. I know, David's voice broke. I've been stealing from our future to pay for my past. I stood up, pacing the small office. Every fiber of my being wanted to run from this mess, from these revelations, from the complicated tangle of lies and betrayal. But running wouldn't solve anything. It never did. I stopped pacing and looked at my husband, really looked at him. He was broken, terrified, ashamed, but he was also still the man I'd married 6 years ago. Flawed, yes. Human, absolutely, but not beyond redemption. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice steady and clear. We're going to fix this together. David looked up at me, hope and disbelief warring on his face. But first, I continued, you're going to delete that podcast. Every episode, the whole channel. Maya, the subscribers, the income, is built on our private pain without my consent. It's gone, today. He nodded slowly. Okay, what else? You're going to come clean with me about everything. Every email from Marcus, every payment, every detail of what happened 3 years ago. No more secrets, no more protecting me from information I deserve to have. And then, David asked quietly, then we're going to face Marcus, together. David pulled up Marcus's contact information. He lives about 40 minutes from here. But Maya, he's dangerous. Not physically, but he has all the evidence. If we confront him and he decides to turn us in, then we go down fighting, I said. I'm tired of living in fear of what might happen, aren't you? David stared at me for a long moment, then nodded. When do we go? Tomorrow. We'll go tomorrow and we'll end this, one way or another. I turned to leave the office, exhausted beyond measure. But David's voice stopped me. Maya, why are you helping me? After everything I've done, all the lies, why aren't you walking away? I looked back at him, and for the first time that night, I answered honestly. Because I'm not innocent in this either. I pushed you away. I stopped seeing you, and somewhere in all this mess, I realized something. I still love you. I don't like what you did, and I don't know if I can forgive it yet. But I'm not ready to give up on us. As I walked toward our bedroom, One thought kept echoing in my mind. Tomorrow, we'd face the man who'd been controlling our life for 3 years. Tomorrow, we'd finally be free. Or tomorrow, we'd lose everything. 2 days after that horrible night in David's office, we stood outside Marcus Peterson's apartment building in the upscale part of downtown. It was a Saturday afternoon, the kind of beautiful day that felt wrong for what we were about to do. I'd spent those 2 days doing research, making phone calls, talking to a lawyer friend discreetly, carefully, asking hypothetical questions that weren't hypothetical at all, and I'd formulated a plan. David stood beside me, pale and terrified. His hand was shaking when he reached for the buzzer. "Are you sure about this?" he asked for the 100th time. I wasn't sure about anything, but I was done living in fear. "Ring the buzzer," I said. The voice that came through the intercom was smooth, confident. "Yeah, Marcus, it's David. We need to talk." A pause. Then, "I told you to come alone, David. Who's we?" "It's me," I said, leaning toward the speaker. "His wife, and we're not leaving until we talk to you." Another pause, longer this time. Then the door buzzed open. We took the elevator to the 8th floor. As the doors opened, I saw Marcus standing in his apartment doorway, and I was immediately struck by how different he was from what I'd imagined. I'd pictured someone menacing, dangerous-looking. But Marcus Peterson was the opposite. He was in his early 40s, wearing expensive casual clothes, designer jeans, and a fitted shirt. He was handsome in that carefully maintained way, with styled hair and a smile that probably charmed everyone he met. His apartment behind him was sleek and modern, all clean lines and expensive furniture. This was a man who'd built a comfortable life on other people's fear. "David," Marcus said, his tone friendly but with an edge underneath. "And you must be Maya. I've heard so much about you." He stepped aside. "Come in." Marcus's living room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He gestured for us to sit on a leather sofa while he took a chair across from us, perfectly relaxed, like this was a social call. "So," Marcus said, crossing his legs, "to what do I owe this unexpected pleasure?" I didn't wait for David to speak. This was my show now. "We're not paying you anymore," I said clearly. Marcus's smile didn't falter. "Is that so?" "The payments stop. Today. It's over." Now Marcus laughed, actually laughed. "David, did your wife hit her head or something? Because she doesn't seem to understand how this works." He leaned forward, his smile turning cold. "I make one phone call and David goes down for fraud. You lose everything. Your house, your savings, his career. Is that really what you want?" "Except David didn't commit fraud," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was hammering. "You did. You're the one who destroyed evidence, manipulated records, obstructed justice. David was just trying to move on with his life." Marcus's expression darkened. "We were in it together. Partners. If I go down, he goes down." "Maybe," I acknowledged. "But here's what else I know. You've been extorting money from him for 3 years. That's a crime all by itself. We have records of every payment, every threatening text and email. We have documentation of everything." The charm completely dropped from Marcus's face. He stood up, and for the first time I saw something dangerous flash in his eyes. "You have no idea what you're playing with," he said, his voice low and threatening. "That investor, Richard Graves, he has connections. Real connections. Political, legal, criminal. If this comes out, if you go to the authorities, he won't just come after David. He'll come after both of you. He'll destroy you in ways you can't even imagine." I stood up too, meeting his eyes. "We're willing to take that risk. We're willing to go to the authorities with everything we have. The question is, are you?" David stood beside me, finding his voice. "It's over, Marcus. We're done being afraid of you." Marcus's face twisted with rage. "You stupid. Do you have any idea what you've just done? You've signed your own." And that's when someone knocked on the door. "We're not paying you anymore," I said clearly. Marcus's smile didn't falter. "Is that so?" "The payments stop. Today. It's over." Now Marcus laughed, actually laughed. "David, did your wife hit her head or something? Because she doesn't seem to understand how this works." He leaned forward, his smile turning cold. "I make one phone call and David goes down for fraud. You lose everything. Your house, your savings, his career. Is that really what you want?" "Except David didn't commit fraud," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was hammering. "You did. You're the one who destroyed evidence, manipulated records, obstructed justice. David was just trying to move on with his life. Marcus's expression darkened. We were in it together. Partners. If I go down, he goes down. Maybe, I acknowledged. But here's what else I know. You've been extorting money from him for 3 years. That's a crime all by itself. We have records of every payment, every threatening text and email. We have documentation of everything. The charm completely dropped from Marcus's face. He stood up, and for the first time I saw something dangerous flash in his eyes. You have no idea what you're playing with, he said, his voice low and threatening. That investor, Richard Graves, he has connections. Real connections. Political, legal, criminal. If this comes out, if you go to the authorities, he won't just come after David. He'll come after both of you. He'll destroy you in ways you can't even imagine. I stood up too, meeting his eyes. We're willing to take that risk. We're willing to go to the authorities with everything we have. The question is, are you? David stood beside me, finding his voice. It's over, Marcus. We're done being afraid of you. Marcus's face twisted with rage. You stupid. Do you have any idea what you've just done? You've signed your own. And that's when someone knocked on the door. Marcus froze mid-sentence, his face going from angry to confused in an instant. Are you expecting someone? I asked innocently. No, Marcus said slowly, suspicion creeping into his voice. He looked at me, then at David, then back at the door. Another knock, more insistent this time. Marcus walked to the door and opened it. Standing there were 2 people in professional attire. The woman in front held up a badge. Marcus Peterson? She said. I'm Detective Sarah Walsh with the Financial Crimes Division. We have a warrant for your arrest for fraud and extortion related to the Innovatech Holdings case. I watched the color drain completely from Marcus's face. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Detective Walsh stepped into the apartment, another officer behind her. You have the right to remain silent. As they read Marcus his rights, he kept looking back at us, realization dawning in his eyes. You set me up. I didn't answer. I just watched as they put handcuffs on him, as the smooth, confident man who'd been blackmailing my husband for 3 years was led away like a common criminal, which I suppose is exactly what he was. David and I left the building in silence. We made it to the car before David finally spoke. How did you? When did you, Maya? What just happened? I took a deep breath. After our conversation 2 nights ago, I didn't just consult a lawyer friend. I contacted the Financial Crimes Division. I gave them everything, all your records, the emails, the payment history, everything. David stared at me in shock. But the fraud charges, the investor with connections, mostly fabricated, I said. I mean, there probably was some shady business with that startup, but Marcus exaggerated the threat to keep you paying. The detective told me they'd been building a case against Marcus for months. Turns out, you weren't his only victim. He's been running this scam on at least 4 other people, former business associates, college friends, anyone he had dirt on. He's made hundreds of thousands of dollars through extortion. So I was never in real danger? David's voice was barely a whisper. You were in danger of spending the rest of your life paying a man who was playing you. But legal danger? Probably minimal. The detective said Marcus kept just enough real information mixed with lies to keep people scared and paying. David leaned back against the car, looking dazed. You did all this in 2 days? I did what I had to do to protect us, to free us. I looked at him. No more secrets, remember? I couldn't tell you because I needed Marcus to think you were still under his control. But David, we're free now. It's really over. For the first time in days, I saw something like hope in my husband's eyes. That evening, we sat on our back porch watching the sunset. We'd spent the afternoon at the police station, giving official statements, signing paperwork. It was exhausting and surreal and somehow cleansing. Now, in the quiet of our own space, we finally had time to just be. I deleted the podcast, David said quietly. Every episode, the whole channel. I know, I watched you do it. 47,000 people were following our story, and now it's just gone. It was never theirs to follow, I said. It was ours, and we get to decide what happens next. David pulled out a folded piece of paper from his pocket. I wrote you something, an apology letter. It's not enough, I know that, but I wanted you to know. I wanted to ask what you need from me, to rebuild trust, to fix this. I took the letter but didn't open it yet. Can I tell you something first? He nodded. I've been thinking about my part in all of this. And David, I'm not innocent. I pulled away from our marriage. I buried myself in work because it was easier than dealing with the fact that we were struggling. I stopped seeing you, really seeing you. I stopped asking how you were, what you were feeling. I made you invisible in your own life. So where does that leave us? David asked, his voice thick with emotion. I was quiet for a long moment, watching the sun sink lower on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I don't know if we can fix this, I finally said. I don't know if trust can be rebuilt once it's been shattered like this. I felt David tense beside me, preparing for the worst. But I continued, I'm willing to try. Real therapy together. Real conversations, even when they're hard. No more secrets, no more half-truths or omissions or trying to protect each other from difficult realities. No more secrets, David echoed, tears streaming down his face. Maya, I promise you. Don't promise me yet, I said. Show me. Day by day, that's how trust gets rebuilt, one honest moment at a time. We sat together in silence as the sun set completely. We weren't touching. That felt too soon, too much. But we were present. We were here. And for now, that was enough. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw a notification. GPS tracking app. Do you want to continue tracking David's location? I looked at the notification, then at David. He'd seen it too. For a moment I hesitated. Part of me wanted to keep that safety net, that ability to always know where he was. But I knew that's not how trust worked. Trust isn't about surveillance. It's about choosing to believe, even when you're scared. I deleted the app. Starting over means starting over, I said quietly. David reached for my hand, tentatively. I let him take it. We sat there on our porch, hands intertwined, not talking, just breathing together. It wasn't a happy ending. It wasn't a fairy tale resolution where everything was magically fixed. But it was honest. It was real. And it was a beginning. If you're wondering what happened after that night, here's what I can tell you. Marcus Peterson was convicted of extortion and fraud. He's serving a 5-year sentence. The other victims he'd been blackmailing came forward, and together, we helped bring him to justice. David and I, we're in therapy, individual and couples. It's hard work, harder than I ever imagined. Some days I'm angry at him all over again. Some days he's frustrated with me for not letting go of the past fast enough. But we keep showing up, we keep trying. We moved out of our house, too many bad memories, and into a smaller place where we can start fresh. David got a new job at a different firm, somewhere with no connection to his past. I cut back on my client load to make more time for us. Are we healed? No. Trust takes a long time to rebuild, and we're still in the middle of that journey. But we're honest now. Really, truly honest. And some days that's enough. The GPS app is still deleted. I haven't checked his location once. And you know what? That's when I realized we might actually make it. When I stopped needing to know where he was every moment and started trusting that he'd come home. I learned that marriage is messy and complicated. That people we love can hurt us deeply while genuinely believing they're protecting us. That sometimes the only way forward is through the hard, painful truth. And I learned that I'm stronger than I ever knew. Strong enough to face my fears. Strong enough to demand better. Strong enough to try again, even after everything fell apart. David reached for my hand tentatively. I let him take it. We sat there on our porch, hands intertwined, not talking, just breathing together. It wasn't a happy ending. It wasn't a fairy tale resolution where everything was magically fixed, but it was honest. It was real. And it was a beginning. If you're wondering what happened after that night, here's what I can tell you. Marcus Peterson was convicted of extortion and fraud. He's serving a 5-year sentence. The other victims he'd been blackmailing came forward, and together we helped bring him to justice. David and I, we're in therapy. Individual and couples, it's hard work, harder than I ever imagined. Some days I'm angry at him all over again. Some days he's frustrated with me for not letting go of the past fast enough. But we keep showing up, we keep trying. We moved out of our house, too many bad memories, and into a smaller place where we can start fresh. David got a new job at a different firm, somewhere with no connection to his past. I cut back on my client load to make more time for us. Are we healed? No. Trust takes a long time to rebuild, and we're still in the middle of that journey. But we're honest now. Really, truly honest. And some days, that's enough. The GPS app is still deleted. I haven't checked his location once. And you know what? That's when I realized we might actually make it. Not when I stopped needing to know where he was every moment and started trusting that he'd come home. I learned that marriage is messy and complicated. That people we love can hurt us deeply while genuinely believing they're protecting us. That sometimes the only way forward is through the hard, painful truth. And I learned that I'm stronger than I ever knew. Strong enough to face my fears. Strong enough to demand better. Strong enough to try again, even after everything fell apart. If you're going through something similar, if you're questioning your relationship, feeling that intuition whisper that something's wrong, or dealing with betrayal in your own life, I want you to know this. You're not alone. Your feelings are valid, and you have the strength to face whatever truth is waiting for you. Trust your gut, demand honesty, and remember that you deserve a relationship built on transparency, not secrets. If this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it. And leave a comment telling me your thoughts. Have you ever had to confront a difficult truth in your relationship? How did you handle it? Thank you for going on this journey with me. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, the GPS never lies. But more importantly, we shouldn't have to rely on GPS to trust the people we love. I'm Maya, and this has been my story. Until next time, stay strong, stay honest, and trust yourself. If you're going through something similar, if you're questioning your relationship, feeling that intuition whisper that something's wrong, or dealing with betrayal in your own life, I want you to know this. You're not alone. Your feelings are valid, and you have the strength to face whatever truth is waiting for you. Trust your gut, demand honesty, and remember that you deserve a relationship built on transparency, not secrets. If this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it. And leave a comment telling me your thoughts. Have you ever had to confront a difficult truth in your relationship? How did you handle it? Thank you for going on this journey with me. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, the GPS never lies. But more importantly, we shouldn't have to rely on GPS to trust the people we love. I'm Maya, and this has been my story. Until next time, stay strong, stay honest, and trust yourself.